We're going to start now. If I hear any talking out there, we can move you around, like we do in grade school. Welcome, everyone, to Steve Finneron's Celebration of Life. What a great crowd you guys are. I can't believe it. I knew it would be like this. 10,000 people. When the base lodge only holds 700. I know Steve would be looking down right now with a big smile. So I'm going to introduce Bev Anderson, and she's going to lead us off today. And then I'm going to come back and spend 45 minutes with you.
Wow, wonderful. Good afternoon. As we gather in this space looking out at the mountains that Steve loved, I'm reminded of the words of Psalm 121. Thank you. Psalm 121 is sometimes referred to as the Vermont Psalm. The first verse, I lift my eyes to the hills. From whence does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. I can't help but believe that there were days when Steve looked at the very mountains that we're looking at today and has said a prayer of thanks, or perhaps of frustration, or asking for help, or recognition that he was not alone. Psalm 121 reminds us of the beauty of our home and the power of creation. It reminds us that our help does come. I invite you to take a few minutes in silence to remember and think about your relationship with Steve and our relationship to this place that Steve loved. I'll bring us out of that silence with an amen. So, silence. Amen.
Thank you, Bev. Well, we all had different relationships with Steve. Every single one of us here in the room. And many more people that couldn't make it. So he did affect a lot of people. There we go. Okay. I usually have a Janet Jackson kind of thing on, so I'm usually just kidding. I do a lot of awards with a lot of kids, so I have to have a lot of fun. And Steve was a lot of fun because he played with a lot of kids. So I'm going to start off. My name's Chuck Hughes. I'm one of Steve's neighbors for over 40 years. And our kids grew up together, right next to each other. So it was pretty neat living in this town. And I gave a speech at the memorial race, and I've watched it 15 times, and I still can't remember everything in it. And I did it without writing anything down. And it was probably one of the better speeches or talks that I've ever given. So I'm going to try with some of my notes to do it again, but we'll see. He was a great guy, one of a kind. He was my great neighbor. He was on the select board. He was on the school board. Fourth grade maple syrup guy, and he built the sugar shack at school. He wore many hats in town. He was not a subject there was not a subject he did not know about, and he was very knowledgeable. As his neighbor, I would have to listen to him and understand exactly what he was telling me. If not, he was going to tell me again. Did I already say he's a really great guy? He was a great man, respected by so many, and he will be remembered by all. He was a great husband, father, and for me, a coach. He was a coach in our program, and I'm the program director of the Killington Ski Club, Killington Mountain School Development Program, right up in that building up there. And I've been doing it for a while. And Steve and I worked together for the last 15 years or so of his life. And he worked with my wife for many, many years. And he was hired by Wendy Hill, if you knew Wendy Hill. Steve, at that point, didn't ski, or couldn't ski, or was learning how to ski. And Wendy Hill took him over to Needles Eye and taught him how to ski. And now he was a great skier, and he learned to ski. He worked with my wife, Betty, I mentioned that, and with a team of other coaches, so many, I can't name them all. I had the pleasure of working with him for the last 15 years of my life. I was his boss, but I don't felt I ever was his boss. You know, we worked together. He taught me, and I taught him. He always had something up his sleeve or something out of his bag of tricks to tell me about. I had to write this down because Steve was old school. There was never a day that he did not come into my office after a day of coaching and telling me and letting me know how he did that day with the kids and how the snow was and what lifts were working and everything about the day. And he always had a positive attitude about doing things in skiing. He loved skiing. So I'm staying on skiing for a little bit. Did I mention he was a coach for over 40 years? Our coaches meetings on Saturday. So I have to ad-lib a little bit. We have 2 coaches meetings on Saturday. We have our first meeting with all the alpine coaches, and then we have the second meeting with all the freestyle and the snowboard and the free ski and the Future Stars coaches and the CITs, which are the coaches in training. Steve would be there before the first meeting, sitting there. He would stay through the first meeting, and then he needed to be at the second meeting. He'd be there too. He was holding court at the end of the table. Every coach that came into the coaches' room, he would say hi to. We have 71 coaches. He would talk with them all, and they would talk with him. People, and a lot of people knew him. So it was quite interesting watching him just sit there, and I'll never forget it. It's one of those things I'll cherish in my thoughts. We have a memorial race at the ski club. It's in March, and we started years ago for one of our coaches, and then another coach, and then another coach, and then we brought Steve into it. And we honored Steve this year by honoring Steve at our memorial race. I've got a letter that I'd like to read from one of our coaches who wrote everybody's got an app. Does everybody have an app in here? Anybody have an app? Okay. Well, the coaches have a U10. There's a U10 app. There's a U12 app. There's a U14 app, U16 app, Freestyle app. So, Eric Gallardi, are you in here, Eric? I didn't think so. Well, he's got a couple of boys, and he's probably down in Massachusetts working. So he wrote this on the Memorial Day before the race for all the parents, and it was pretty interesting. We were all really excited for the memorial race. It's going to be a fun format for the kids. It's hard at this age to explain the history behind the memorial race, so this post is more for all the parents. The memorial race is a fundraiser in the name of several coaches that dedicated significant amount of time, decades, to coaching. It's in memory of Matt Harnett. It's in memory of Ed Carey, Buffalo Head. It's in memory of Wendy Hill, who started the program, and this year specifically Steve Finneron. And he writes, I personally can speak to Wendy and Steve. Unfortunately, I didn't know Matt and Ed. Wendy ran the Hopefuls, now known as Future Stars. She was tough and she was knowledgeable as a coach. She loved teaching kids and had quite the name for herself as the Masters racer over the years. In December, Steve Finneron passed away tragically from ALS. Steve was my first coach in the program. I don't know exactly what year he started, but I was in one of his first groups for KSC when I was 6 years old. Over the years, I would run into him skiing with his groups. Things came full circle when I dropped off my older son Jack at Future Stars and saw Steve. It had been a minute, but it was great to reintroduce myself to him after all these years. At the first meeting of the year, a lot of us joked that Tyler Hughes, my son, who runs the Future Stars program, was the driving force to get all the people to coach. But there are a lot of people that touched all of our lives prior to this point, and that is what Steve did. But to make this race so special. All of that being said, I hope the kids have fun, ski fast, and keep smiling. And that was Steve's attitude too. I'm just going to continue, and if you know me, you know I can keep talking. So I'm not going to, because there are a number of other people that would like to get up here and say something. We set up a scholarship years ago for the Killington Ski Club, and it was called the Memorial Scholarship. And first it was for Matt, and then it was for Matt and Ed, and then it was for Matt, Ed, and Wendy. And this year we recognized Steve. And do you know that over $6,000 worth of donations came in for Steve this year? That's more than we usually make in 1 year on all of the donations. So there were a lot of people out there that really love Steve. And my neck is getting stiff from leaning down here into this microphone. Steve probably touched or worked with, I shouldn't say touched, he worked with over sorry. Steve probably worked with over 1,000 athletes in our program over the years. So I just want to mention that we did make a plaque. We gave Sheila a copy of it. We put it in the coach's room. Some people touch it when they walk in because it's low enough and you can touch it. So, and my last thing before I close out here, and I bring on Kyle Finneron, I just want to say, let's cheer for Steve right now. 1, 2, and 3. Steve! Okay, that was sort of okay. I do this at the ski races and at the freestyle contests too, so. You're all athletic. You're going to have to do something a little bit more than that. And we would really like the people at Bear Mountain to be able to hear you and Steve to hear you. Okay, so let's try it one more, and we're all going to yell Steve, okay? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Steve! Thank you. Kyle?
Thank you, Chuck. I'm not good with mics. What an incredible turnout today. I don't think any of us are surprised. I know I'm not. But I want to thank every one of you for being here today. When we decided we were going to have a celebration to honor my dad, I always knew I wanted to speak. But one thing that I was having an issue with was what tone. Should it be serious and solemn, or should it be lighthearted? It was a struggle for me. I probably wrote about 30 different speeches in my head, but none of them were quite right. So I kept asking myself, what would my dad want? While we were planning the event, one of the aspects that went into today was what music were we going to play. We went back and forth, and it was a very similar thing. Should it be sad, solemn? No, it should be lighthearted. He'd want it to be lighthearted. So what we decided to do was go into my dad's Spotify account and look at his favorite music. Took a little doing, but we got there. And one thing that struck me, there wasn't a single sad song. There was 70 some odd songs, not one sad one. He saved All I Want for Christmas Is You, which, don't get me wrong, is a great song, but you don't save that to your favorites. Which I laughed pretty hard imagining him driving down the access road, just jamming out to Mariah Carey in July, going by the sign that blinks and says naughty when you're going 35. Can we bring that back? That was hilarious. But looking through his songs, that gave me my answer. He wouldn't want us to be sad. He would want us to celebrate him and the amazing life that he lived and the incredible impact he had on his family, his friends, and his community. Earlier this year, I was walking on the golf course with my lovely wife, and someone came up to me, wanted to share their condolences, which had happened a lot over the last couple years. As we were chatting, he told me he really only met my dad once, but he had such an impact on him. And when he left meeting my dad, he said, "Be more like that guy. Be more like Steve." And just what an incredible thing to think after meeting someone. That story got me thinking, what would it mean to be more like Steve? It's a great question, and I'm sure we all have our own answers of what it would mean. I thought about it a lot, and this is what it meant to me. Find something to be passionate about. As many of you know, my dad was passionate about a lot of things. A couple of examples include skiing, golf, his community, and making maple syrup. And a lot of these passions he developed later in life. But when he found something that brought him joy, he would go all in. I was going to say some of you may not know that he didn't learn to ski until he was later, but thanks, Chuck. But he only learned to ski when he moved up to Killington. But as soon as he learned, there was no turning back. It was the same thing with maple syrup. I remember when we first started sugaring, we would sit in the driveway with a little pot on a brick stove to boil the sap. My job was to scoop the foam off the top. I have no idea if that's actually part of it, or if he just wanted to make me feel useful. It's okay. He was passionate about his community, so much so that he volunteered on the school board and later on the town select board. He was passionate about golf. I didn't know this until recently, but he was a much bigger part of Green Mountain National than I ever knew. He would play Thursday night Twilight League, and he would bring me out to the course to show me the game that he loved. And I think that last little part is what a lot of people miss. Not only would being like Steve mean finding something to be passionate about, it's about sharing it with as many people as you can. He did this with everything. He loved to ski, so he taught skiing for decades. And in some cases, it was multiple generations of the same family. He used to love telling the stories where the kids would come up and say, "Coach Steve, how long have you been coaching?" He'd say, "Well, Johnny, I taught your dad when he was your age." He loved to say that. With maple sugaring, he loved it so much that he started teaching the 4th grade class. And he did that for years. And he kept doing it after I was out of school and my sister and I had graduated from college. For golf, not only did he love to play, but he also loved volunteering at the AJGA tournament. And even back in the day when the Futures tournament would come into town, my parents would open up their home to let some of the players have a place to stay. Just incredible. But with all that being said, I do think there are some things to be passionate about that you keep close to your heart. And for my dad, what he cherished most were his friends and his family. His love for his friends is absolutely incredible, many of whom are here today, friends from high school and a lot of friends from college. Every year, they would get all the families together down in the Cape, or the guys would come up for a ski weekend. And it's just incredible to maintain friendships for that long. And last but certainly not least, he was passionate about his family. I don't think we'll be able to fully express how much he loved and cared about his family. Both the family he was born into in Fitchburg and the family he created here. He never needed to say it, but we always knew if we ever needed him, he'd be there for us. I think we should all try to be more like Steve. If you have a hobby or a passion, go all in and share it with as many people as possible. Be kind to everyone, cherish your friendships, and love your family. And let's all listen to Mariah Carey as we go down the access road today. Be more like Steve. Thank you.
Mariah Carey. I didn't know that. Thank you, Kyle. Jane, are you here? You're on, Jane.
Okay, hopefully I can get through this. I tried to make it a little funny, so I could. So it's a poem. So it's an ode to Stephen. They say we met on the corner of Highland and Pearl, riding our tricycles, boy meets girl. Or was it at Rolo's getting some candy? Stephen wondered, why is this girl so dandy? We both could run fast, we both could play ball. There was a connection right away, in spite of it all. Both families were large, and as kids we were tough. Could we keep up with them? I felt sure enough. Cap guns, baseball, football, and races. Lighting matches under Stephen's porch. Stealing rhubarb and hiding places. Stephen never learned to swim, so we feared he would drown when we would take him to the beach and the waves would knock him down. I think Mary, his mom, thought I was nothing but trouble. Did she really think she could keep Steve in a bubble? He played team ball in 8th grade while I cheered on the bench each game. And by high school, the Benadians team made Boston Garden fame. High school came and we drifted a bit, but Stephen was there to help out if I needed it. He was the golden boy in school and rarely around. I was a nerd one day and the next day, class clown. In college, he joined a frat, Mohawks, I believe, wearing that jacket around campus with the M on his sleeve. He left the Berg and moved to Killington, learned how to ski, and we were back in touch. Sheila stole his heart, a woman he loved so much. Adding golf to the mix, we four spent the time ahead. Then the Finnerons began their trips down to Westport Spread. Steve loved the beach and the brewery trips. Music was his thing, and songs sailed through his lips. Going to Pat's games brought another layer to my friend. Whoever thought the spark for both would ever end? I can only say I miss that smile and look when I was out of line. Who else could say to me, take it down a notch and you'll be fine? So, Stephen, to the 73 years of being your friend, it's hard to think that's come to an end. But what a life we have had knowing each other. I can say for sure there will never be another.
Thank you very much. Richard, would you like to come up?
I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be a part of this as we celebrate the life of Stephen. I want to celebrate a lot of the fun. When I first met Stephen, it was in the late 60s, and we were in the middle of our college experiences. He, Michael Shields, and I moved into the first of what became 4 different apartments over the years, and we only had 1 eviction notice. We were busy misspending our youth, and it felt like we were something of a protective bubble around us. Whatever we did, it just kind of worked out. There was some college education, but mostly I remember the fun. There was a day called Black Friday. It had nothing to do with Christmas shopping, and honest, it was just some good-natured, rambunctious play, and we only broke a little of the furniture. We had tequila with spaghetti sauce to prepare for middle-of-the-night hockey games. If somebody wanted to know how fast backwards a 60 Chevys would go, you just ask Billy and he would demonstrate it up the street right up until the time he crushed the old Volkswagen that was parked in front of our apartment. Stephen, Michael, and I in 1970 took a weekend road trip to the Strawberry Fields Music Festival outside Toronto. We decided to use his car, but we had to wait for him to get home from work so we could let him know he had made that decision. We sailed through everything, and it was a wonderful weekend. It was the Canadian Woodstock with over 100,000 of our new best friends. And we were still in that bubble because we eventually all got home all right. At some point, many of us graduated. And Stephen came to Killington to start his development into a solid citizen. He started in the rental shop, which many of you know. But over time, I'm sure he had a lot of important things to say and do as the ski instructor, as the knowledgeable force, as the member of the school committee, the select board, and a very active citizen. I'm sure the people here knew that they could count on him to listen carefully, treat people fairly, and to do the right thing. Through all the decades, now over half a century, we had our group in the Mohawk Club, and we shared our lives, and Stephen shared with us. The Guys' Weekend in Killington, which we've done for well over 40 years, probably pushing 50, we would all come up and pretend we were back in college. We would go skiing, play volleyball, and then we would end up at the happy hour down at either King's 4 or eventually the Pickle Barrel, and Stephen would chime in doing Mitch Ryder or Aerosmith. I heard one of his Killington friends once refer to it as the weekend for his buddies from college, which I took as a high compliment. We've had many, many golf games, some scored, some not. Road trips out around the West Coast, Florida. And in the last years, it was as simple as sitting around a fire pit while we would drink his scotch with him. What was important is that we were still together. Through all the years, Stephen seemed to know if one of us needed some help, and he was there to provide it. Long ago, Stephen married the lovely Sheila Norwood, and we all got to show up on that hilltop to share in the celebration of his wedding. Many of the people who were at that wedding are here today. It has been having our families coming together for so many events over so many years, in each other's weddings, at our children's weddings, and just the act of showing up with Stephen and Sheila then and today. Sheila and her family will always be a part of that larger family. There is a word that Mohawks think only we're supposed to use. It's swingitaha. If you know it, you know. If you don't know it and you're curious about it, think about Stephen. A profoundly good man, a strong sense of character, an individual that you knew you could rely on to show up and always do the right thing. He will now show up in our memories and in our hearts with Sheila and his children, and together we will miss him. May he rest in peace. Our friend, our brother, Swangitaha.
Thank you, Richard. So you're one of the college buddies, huh? Being his neighbor, we'd run into each other, and he'd always say, "Yeah, we're my college buddies, my college buddies." I thought there were like 40 of them. I'm not sure how many he really did have, but I did have the pleasure of playing golf one time when somebody couldn't make it, so I got to play with the college buddies. So, Nancy, please come up and speak.
Let me know if you can hear me in the back. Thank you. My name is Nancy Luke. I'll try to speak as clearly as I can. Steve and I shared some very unique life experiences. One of those was the love of teaching skiing. We both taught for many, many, many years. Him here at his beloved Killington, and me at Sugarbush. Winters are busy, and we didn't see a lot of Steve and Sheila in the winters. But in the summer, we would meet at A&W for dinner and a root beer float. I think there's a picture on the slideshow. Another thing we shared was a love for our beautiful Sheila. She is the sister of my heart, and I couldn't be more blessed to have her in my life. The less desirable thing that we shared was ALS, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Steve was diagnosed in 2024. I was diagnosed in 2022. So by the time Steve was diagnosed, I was pretty deeply embedded in the world of ALS and doing a lot of activities in that area. The thing with ALS is everybody's story is a little bit different. Symptoms are different and progression is different. In those 2 years of seeing Steve's symptoms, I never even once thought he was on the road to an ALS diagnosis. I mean, really, what are the odds? We're not blood related. So what were the odds that in the same family, that horrible disease would strike twice? But it did. Unfortunately, Steve's path and mine have been a little different. I am slowly being robbed of my life, but he was very quickly robbed of his. And he was taken from us far too soon. I can't change that. But I am doing everything I can to create a world without ALS for those who come after me and Steve.
Thank you, Nancy. Bev Anderson would like to come back up.
See if we can find the right place here. The one specific request that Sheila made of me was that we include the 23rd Psalm in this time together. And so I invite all of you, as best you are able, to join me as we say the 23rd Psalm together. It is the Psalm of David, and if you know it by another name, it is "The Lord is my shepherd." Please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Thank you, Bev. George? George came in a little late, so he may be a little hot right now. George, are you one of the college buddies too?
No, I'm a high school buddy.
Oh, high school.
Sheila, I made it. Oh dear, I can feel it already. I feel honored to be invited here this afternoon amongst this Killington community that I always heard so much about. Upon accepting Sheila's invitation to share some reflections, I started my process by asking myself a basic question. What might be the one word or one phrase that would describe Steve, his essence, his core, his spirit? Now, we all have varying interactions with Steve that would inform how we experienced him, and thus how we would describe him. But before I relate what I uncovered in my reflection, I want to first invite everyone here to participate. And earlier I saw everybody participating, so I'm relieved that you're not going to hold back. I want to invite everyone to briefly explore the question, what word, what phrase might you use to describe Steve's essence, his core, his spirit? To begin, if you feel comfortable, and I sense most of you will, I would ask you to close your eyes and visualize Steve, or to look at him here. As you picture Steve in your mind's eye, ask yourself, what word, what phrase would I use to describe his spirit, his core, his essence? Once you have your word or phrase, open your eyes. Now, if you feel comfortable to join in, I'm inviting everyone to meld into one communal voice and to simultaneously speak the word, the phrase that you have chosen. So together, we will count to 3, and then together we will give voice to our word or phrase. Ready? Together. 1, 2, 3. Open-heartedness. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, it truly takes a community to give voice to what Steve was all about. Thank you. Now, no, I'm not done yet. Now, my journey with Steve began in September 1964 as we entered our freshman year at St. Bernard's Central Catholic High School in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Like many other classmates, I was drawn to Steve's affable and congenial manner, his engaging energy and zest. Steve exhibited an inviting smile with just a wee tinge of rascal-like playfulness. He was an open and welcoming classmate, interacting with me and others in a genuine, authentic manner. Even way back in high school, and considering his accomplishments, especially in sports, Steve exhibited a genuine simplicity and straightforwardness. I do not recall Steve ever putting on airs. He seemed to be content with who he was and where he was going. He knew that he was evolving and maturing and seemed to take a delight in his way of being. So even back some 60 plus years ago, Steve was manifesting what I describe today as open-hearted. Open-hearted is my foundational word and description for Steve. Now, I certainly did not have the capacity in high school to use the term open-hearted. But reflecting on Steve, as I experienced him throughout high school and as we intermittently interacted over the years, for me, Steve has always been an authentic example of an open-hearted human being. So what do I mean by open-hearted? Briefly, open-hearted has something to do with the heart, with that we might refer to as the symbolic human heart. Throughout the day, our symbolic human heart participates in an ongoing process of opening up or closing down to the various people, events, and things that we cross during the day. Now, our symbolic human heart is either in a process of opening up or closing down. It is never static. Steve, like us all, made his share of mistakes. But from my experience, he lived his life through open-heartedness, inviting and welcoming, embracing, accepting, and supporting people with whom he would interact with throughout an average day. He was generous with his time and talents. He was in love with this community of Killington. So I say, Steve Finneron, we thank you. We thank you for welcoming and embracing us in so many different ways, as a husband, as a father, a team player, a son, a brother, a cousin, a classmate, a coach, a friend, a teacher, an engaged citizen, a community collaborator, a dependable co-worker, and simply as that friendly face waiting in the checkout line, or more likely, in the chairlift line. Steve, you left your space and the people you encountered along your life better off. You contributed, you enhanced, you helped to nurture people and situations in which you found yourself. You gave generously of your time, your talent, your energy. Once you settled into Killington, you shared your open-heartedness with this community. However, there was something particularly different about you, Steve. Now, you have to excuse me, but in reference to the ontological question, what is the meaning of life? Or how do we infuse life with purpose and meaning? Or how do we live a full life, no matter our life situation? I believe that you, Steve, are one of the few people that I know who truly manifested open-heartedness. For me, you have been one of the more remarkable examples of what it means to be a full human being. You embraced each of us in so many helpful ways. You touched and massaged our hearts. You were and continue to be a gift, a blessing, a sacred memory. Permit me one final observation. Steve and I studied Latin in high school, or at least we tried. And the Roman philosopher Seneca of the 1st century AD came to my mind this week. Now, I had to look this up, but in Seneca's essay on the shortness of life, he states, "Life, when well lived, is long enough." Life, when well lived, is long enough. Without a doubt, Steve's life was well lived. But we who were embraced by him, whose hearts were touched by him, are left with a void, craving something more. Yes, Steve's life was well lived. But may we dare assert, even protest, by adding to Seneca's sentiment that for us, it was not long enough. that Steve's life was not long enough for us. So along with so many fond memories, we will always have our special word, our special phrase, to recall and to remind us of Steve and the example to emulate a life well lived.
Wow. George, thank you very much. Barry, would you like to come up and speak, please?
Oh no, I'm Barry. I'm Steve's older brother. And I just want to thank everybody for being here. This is amazing when you look out and see the people that are there. My stuff goes back a little further than the people that have talked so far. I was there when he started. And you aren't going to believe this, but my parents were afraid there was something wrong. Stephen didn't talk till he was like 3. And said, what is wrong with him? Now you know why. He was saving it up. And he just keeps going from there, right? But the age difference never kind of put us in the same place. And, I was playing Little League when he was growing up, and I was playing Babe Ruth League when he was playing Little League, and I was playing high school when he was playing junior high. But we did in high school get a chance. Our high school coach started what he called the Tiny Basketball Association. And he invited all the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to come to the high school, and he had the high school players coach them. And we ran clinics and things. So I did get to actually coach, Stephen a little bit. And taking away from that is just what everybody said. He wanted to learn. And he would watch, and no matter who was talking, he'd be right up front. And, it just went on and shows, his success in high school, playing down the Garden. I know he held the record in the javelin for a whole lot of years, at Fitchburg State and in high school. So we were a little bit apart. We had a couple collision courses. When I came back from Northeastern, and he asked one time if he could borrow my car, and came back with a one less headlight and fender. So that didn't go over too good. But I got back at him because a couple of years later we were playing golf, and he got new clubs. So I said, no, can I use your driver? I'd like to try it. So I proceeded to hit my drive in the water, and his driver got flung in the air and wrapped around a pole, and I ended up having to buy him a new driver. So, so we went from there. But, he came up to Killington. Everything was perfect. The golf was great. We continued to go on from there. Obviously, he did very well. He used to come to our house with Dan and Mike, and he would get them crazy. He would have them chasing them. They'd be wrestling, and then he'd say, "Oh, I got to leave. Now we got to take care of them." But that, like everybody said, when he showed up, you knew something good was going to happen. And you went on from there. He was, when you have brothers, you got friends, and I got 3 brothers, and, everything was great with, with him and what went on. We missed him when he moved up north, but we came and visited, and he came back. He used to come down to Keene all the time, and we'd drive up and we'd play golf up there. So, we tried to stay together as much as we could. We'll find that, just not to go on, but things are crazy, and I was at a funeral a month ago. I come out of the funeral, and this woman is getting into a truck next to me. So I open the door for her, and she looks at me and she says, St. Bernard's, right? And I said, yeah, everybody here's from St. Bernard, so, well, you know. She says, Finneron. I said, yeah. She said, I went to school with Stephen. She said, I'm really sorry to hear that, but he was one of the finest people I ever met. Now, that's 60 years ago, and, you know, that's just the way it was. So, you know, in finishing up, I think everybody said it pretty much as you can. You know, he was a kid that you always wanted to be around, and when he was around, it was going to be a good time, you know. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Marion? Yes, she is. All right, the principal's approaching, so everyone pay attention.
I know, I never saw that rascal side of Steve that some of his friends were talking about. But much has been said, and we are here today in celebration of Steve. And as many of you know, he was very active in the community. And my connection with Steve was when he volunteered for the school board. In that capacity, he was soon voted as the chairperson of the school board. And he had a very broad perspective. He not only focused on the budget and the building, but he was very concerned about the students, the families, and the community. And I'll tell you a short story. 20 years ago, there were 6 schools in the supervisory union, and one of them was Pomfret, lovely little school, a good reputation, and although we usually had meetings at central office, sometimes the superintendent would pick one of the district schools to go to. And the principal of the school was talking about some of the programs they had in the curriculum and a new reading program and whatnot. And she ended her little talk with, and we are the only school in the district to have a sugar house. And I thought, well, not for long. And when I brought it back to the school board, of course, Steve Finneron just jumped on it. He, as many of you know, he has a sugar house on his property that he built, and he knew all the workings that were needed to go into the process, all the components of the process, and to make it run smoothly, like evaporation versus boiling and whatnot. I think the first person he contacted was CV Oil, who donated much of their time and much of the equipment that was needed. And then he just went down the list, jumped right in, full speed ahead. The 4th grade teacher at the time was, oh my goodness, Maria Garland, of course. Of course, anybody who has known sugaring or done the process realizes the educational opportunities embedded in it that would fit into the curriculum, everything from forestry to measurement to everything you can imagine. And she jumped right in and had a wonderful process that I think you were involved in, both of you were involved in, yes? Yes, yes. We ended the process with a pancake breakfast for the parents and the students, because the parents would watch the boiling while the children were in class. So it was just a wonderful process. I standing here today and I'm thinking I have never addressed so many residents without Steve standing next to me for town meeting. He was always right next to me. So I will end with saying he was a wonderful man. He treated everyone with respect and kindness. And he left a lasting impression on many of us. I'm so grateful that I knew him. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you to all the speakers. I wish everybody could get up here and say something, but we'd be here for quite a long time, because with 10,000 people in this room. I did want to just read a couple of, and I mean, they're like 20 pages, so I'm not going to read 20 pages, but I'm going to pick one or two. Let's see. Steve will indeed be deeply missed. His legacy lives on through the students he taught and inspired at KES, thinking of his family and friends. Beth Ann Hughes. No relation to me, but I liked it. Kia Parlett. Or Kaya, no, it's Kia. Kaya Parlett. Steve was my first and favorite ski coach. Rest in peace. John McCarr, I'm so sorry for the loss of such a kind man. He was a kind man, such a kind man. A lot of condolences. Sheila, Bill, and I were so sorry. Carolyn Barberi. He was such a great guy, thinking of you and your family. Joel Hedlund. Many of you know Joel. He was a coach with Steve in the program here. Just a great coach, person, father, and all-around great human being. Rest in peace, Steve. Amy Chesia. She was a ski racer. So sorry to hear that. Steve was a great guy with two huge hearts. And let's see, I'll pick one more. So great to just know Steve. Danielle Melkarek. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to bring Bev up, and Bev is going to have our closing prayer. And I thank everybody for being here. Great guy. I think everybody said it well. I know a lot of you would like to say something, like I said. Just, how about one more, Steve? Hey, ready? Can we do it? You were participating before. You can do it now. On 3, we're going to say Steve. 1, 2, 2 1/4, 2 1/2, 2 3/4. Get ready. 3, Steve. All right. Thank you very much. Bev?
In many of the funerals that I've been involved in the past, you'll find on a funeral bulletin this brief poem. It's called The Broken Chain. You left us peaceful memories. Your love is still our guide. And though we cannot see you, you are always by our side. Those words remind me of a favorite poem of mine by a woman by the name of Megan Finneron, Megan McKenna. that alludes to those lines. The name of the poem is I Frightened a Deer Who Startled Me Last Night. I frightened a deer who startled me last night. He was up close to the front door, but when I turned off the lights and left the car, he came back. He stood, his body still, taut, alert, head turned over his shoulder. He looked at me for a long time, contemplating the one who had come unawares to his place. I looked back, engaged, forgetful of all else but his wild, attentive presence. Was it you? I can't help but wonder. You have a tendency to come in such disguises. The poem reminds us to be alert, pay attention, and keep an open mind. If it's true that the veil between the place where we find ourselves and the place where Steve has gone, then there will be times when we will know Steve's presence, even as we grieve our loss. Perhaps even as we frighten a deer that initially startles us. So as we leave this place, let us hear again the words of Jesus as he speaks with his disciples and with us. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. Jesus promised to prepare a place for us so that where he is, we may be also. May it be so for Steve, and may it be so for each of us in our hopefully distant future. As we leave this place, let us go in peace. Amen.
That completes our program, but you're more than welcome to stick around and have something to eat and drink and to catch up with the family and friends and talk about Steve. And you look so serious. And Sheila's got a smile on her face. And Kyle's got a smile on his face. And Megan's got a smile on her face. So we should all be smiling. Let's everybody try that one time right now. Smile. There we go. Thank you, everybody.